Throwing jabs, always full send. Here we go again. Jared, Joe, and Jay's Clover Crest. Top three corner man. Punching in with a puncher's chance. We find a way to win. The main event, lock it in. Every Saturday at 10. The overhand is out of hand when it comes to fisticuffs. Slide a hand on the undercard. You'll never see the punch. Uppercut, got you missing weight. Feet are stepping late. Keep your guard up, feeling faint. From a feint, take a stand and eight. Then retaliate. Put up your duke. Stick and move. Bob and weave. Don't lose hope against the ropes. There's always an escape. Never stay down. One more round. Bells ringing. Counter punch with your chin tucked and go down swinging. We bringing crosses with no worship, hooks with no verses, combinations with no locks. When you feel the flurry, it's curtains. From scrub scraps to fight stats, relax if you want the facts, because the best combat podcast is throwing jabs.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Throwing Jabs Podcast. I am Joe McGuire along with Jared Jones. UFC 287 is tonight. There was nothing last weekend, so nothing to talk about from before. So that's great. We're going to spend a lot of time. We are going to talk about the co-main event tonight because it could end up being very important, or could be a send-off, one or the other. Jared's got a great flurry coming up, and we'll get into that as well. Excited for that. Before we get into the fights, though, I just wanted to talk about this, Jared. Endeavor, which is the parent company of UFC, and the WWE announced that they have signed an agreement to form a new publicly traded company. It's listed on the New York Stock Exchange as TKO. It doesn't actually have a name yet, and will be MMA and pro wrestling. And I'll tell you what, I think this is brilliant. I think, and I understand the concern, but I think you're talking about a similar audience. I think you could start gracefully taking champions in the UFC and letting them go do it for pretend as characters and for their own.
A la Ronda Rousey.
Right? Brilliant. Brock Lesnar's been back in there doing his thing. He can't go at this level anymore. And
there were some Olympians, an Olympian or two that made the transition.
Yeah, I like this. I think this is, again, people are like, oh, you like this real thing and this fake thing. Yeah, no, that's great. It's called an exhibition. And rather than watch some of these terrible fights on pay-per-view, here's a thing you can, and again, see all these legends and really explore, especially the ones. I mean, dude, think about Nate Diaz. Wouldn't he be a great villain on WWE?
Rematch with Masvidal.
Yeah, dude, come on.
Well, and they'd go after it too,
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a fantastic thing as soon as I heard it. This and maybe more pay for the fighters could come out of this deal if they play their cards right.
The only issue I have is one is purely acting and entertainment. Like I would worry about calling that combat. When you call that combat, it's a bit disrespectful to people engaged in combat, and combat doesn't only include the mixed martial arts. So
true.
I would just be concerned with the WWE getting confused with a form of combat. It is not.
I don't think anyone's going to confuse the two anytime soon.
It was worse than Santa Claus for me. What are you talking about? Nobody told me that wasn't real for the first 10 years of my life.
Do you remember when
Santa Claus? I promise you.
Do you remember when Dr. D. David Schultz popped John Stasiel's eardrums on 2020? I was like, there you go. It's real. Now we know. All right. The main focus, obviously, of today's show is tonight's pay-per-view. It's a big one, especially coming off the heels the last pay-per-view, where we kind of assumed Kamaru Usman was going to go get his belt back, and it didn't happen like that at all. And so we'll talk about this one. Let's do our tale of the tape. Adesanya and Pereira too. Let's break it down. Alex Pereira is 35 years old. He's 6'4" with a 79-inch reach and a record of 6-1 with 5 knockouts. From Sao Paulo, Brazil, Pereira grew up in a poor working-class neighborhood, dropping out of school at the age of 12 and becoming an alcoholic, eventually taking up kickboxing in 2009 to help him get over his addiction. In 2012, he won the WGP middleweight title and 2 years later won the Glory middleweight tournament with a first-round knockout of Dustin Jacoby and a decision over Shahak Parparian. During his impressive kickboxing run, he went on to defeat future UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya twice, once by unanimous decision and once by a thunderous counter left hook knockout, before becoming the first person to hold 2 belts simultaneously when he defeated Artem Valatov by split decision to win the light heavyweight title. After amassing a kickboxing record of 33-7 with 21 knockouts, he made the transition over to MMA, making his debut in October of 2015 with a third-round rear-naked choke submission loss to Kemuel Otoni. He bounced back 3 months later with a vicious first-round knockout of Marcelo Cruz and followed that up with devastating knockouts over Marcus da Silva and Thomas Powell before making his UFC debut in November of 2021 with a flying knee knockout of Andreas Michailidis. 4 months later, he defeated Bruno Silva by unanimous decision, and on July 2nd, 2022, he became the number 4 contender with a brutal knockout of the highly regarded Sean Strickland, dropping him with a savage counter left hook, followed by a right cross to earn his second straight performance of the night. An elite-level counter striker, Pereira uses his world-class kickboxing skills to set the pace and control the distance, where he lands at a blistering 6.2 strikes per minute at a 60% accuracy rate and possesses one-punch knockout power in both hands. Israel Adesanya is 33 years old. He's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach and a record of 23-1 with 15 knockouts. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, he moved to New Zealand at the age of 10 and at 18 took up kickboxing, where he amassed a record of 32-0 before starting to train at the famed City Kickboxing Gym alongside Dan Hooker and Alexander Volkanovski. He began training in both kickboxing and boxing, compiling records of 5-1 and 75-5 respectively. He turned professional in MMA in 2012 with a first-round knockout and won his first 11 fights, all by stoppage, before retiring from kickboxing after being brutally knocked out by Alex Pereira. He made his UFC debut in 2017, knocking out Rob Wilkinson with a flurry of punches and knees, and 3 months later engaged in a close brawl with Marvin Vettori, edging him out for a split decision. Later that year, he knocked out perennial contender Derek Brunson with a left hook and followed that up with a dominant win over legendary former champion Anderson Silva. On October 13, 2019, he fought Kevin Gastelum, winning the interim middleweight belt after a brutal back-and-forth slugfest, and 7 months later unified the title when he knocked out Robert Whittaker with a brutal left hook in round 2. After a convincing decision over Yoel Romero, he blew out number 1 contender Paulo Costa, controlling the distance with his jab and leg kicks and stopping him with a vicious ground and pound. On March 6, 2021, he stepped up to light heavyweight, but despite entering as a heavy favorite, he was completely dominated by champion Jan Blachowicz, getting outstruck in the first 3 rounds and then out-wrestled in the 4th and 5th rounds to lose by unanimous decision. He bounced back 3 months later with a dominant decision over a longtime rival Marvin Vettori and followed that up in February of 2022 with a close decision in a rematch with former champion Robert Whittaker. On July 2nd, 2022, he took on Jared Cannonier, putting on another masterclass and dominating the Killer Gorilla with a stiff jab and a steady stream of body kicks.
He's had his most success to the body tonight.
He
Here's
heard
a
it.
left hook.
He heard it best.
Oh, and now a right. Adesanya's on one
Oh,
leg.
my God.
2 more. Down goes the champion. Pereira trying to close the show.
All right, so let's talk about the similarities, by the way, between this Edwards Usman fight and this one, a situation where right in the first fight, Usman was cruising ahead on all the scorecards and kind of doing what he had been doing of late outside of the knockout of Masvidal, which is mostly like honest. Jared, here's my thing. You remember the Whittaker fight, Whittaker-Adesanya, the second fight, and I said if Izzy had been the challenger, he didn't do enough to take that belt. And that night, Pereira hadn't done enough up until that point, right? Down 3-1 in that fight. That's all he could do. And it was literally the same thing as Rocky there in their fight, where you're down. Everyone thinks, and again, to see that rematch and to see how dominant Edwards was in the second fight, it was kind of an eye opener, and it gives me more pause in thinking in this one. I think Pereira wins this fight.
Wow, who'd you have Jones Tarver too?
You know who I had.
Here I am again, though. Here I am again, Joe. And I'm going to make that same mistake that I made last week.
Do it.
And the same mistake I made with Jones Tarver, too.
Do it.
And the same mistake I keep making when these styles make fights, and we have a great one in there. And take Izzy by to beat Pereira. I like Adesanya to beat Pereira. That said, what it's going to take for him to win is a bit of a stylistic change. It's the same stylistic change Ngannou underwent to defeat Cyril Gane. Very, very similar in nature. Get up against him, take him down, grind it out, win the fight by decision if you must. But then I'm looking through this card and I see 5 fights like that. Israel Adesanya, grind it out. Gilbert Burns and Masvidal, don't stay on your feet, Burns. Don't fall into that trap. Grind it out. Rob Font can get grinded out by Adrian Yanez. Sam Hughes and Jacqueline Amorim. Amorim has to take her down, grind it out. A lot of these, it's what they do. Lupita Godinez, it's kind of what she does. Caravallo's in trouble. She's going to grind her up and spit her out. All 5 of those need kind of the same game plan. But for Izzy, it's a little bit of a shift. If he does that, watch Pereira on the ground and Adesanya on the ground in any of their other fights. I feel like Izzy's trying to beat him where Izzy's best. And he keeps losing to that big shot. Instead, just beat him somewhere else where you can beat him. If you can get him on the ground. I like Izzy on his back better than standing toe-to-toe with this guy. So if he can change that gear, he wins this fight. I'm taking Izzy to show us something we haven't seen before with his ground game.
I don't think Adesanya can take this guy out. I don't think he can take this guy out. And his more recent performances, I would say, again, Pereira's a bigger guy. You don't want to run into that Blachowicz situation where Jan really dominated him. And you know, again, we talk about pound for pound. Had Adesanya put on the weight to go up to middleweight, I think it would have been a different story. You know, he puts himself in bad situations. Again, I watched the second Whitaker fight. I watched it back with no commentary, without Joe Rogan reacting every time Adesanya made a move. And when you watch the fight that way, Whitaker won that by a mile. And his performance against Cannonier, more the same. The fight with Marvin Vettori, he didn't put the Vettori nonsense to rest. A better performance in the second Vettori fight, and didn't dominate him. It wasn't like, he's got to bring the offense tonight, Jared. He's got to come at Pereira. He can't coast like he tends to do lately. You got to get the belt back from this guy. That said, and in watching the first fight, Adesanya is the more skilled fighter. So I get confused by that. But it seems to me like Pereira, who's a naturally bigger guy, a stronger guy, can put the hurt on Adesanya more than he can on Pereira. I don't think there's any concern about Adesanya's stamina. He's had plenty of 5-round battles. Pereira had never been in a 4th round before that night and looked good. Obviously, and turned up the heat there at the end and won the fight. So I'm concerned for Adesanya, and again, not because skills have diminished or because I think Pereira's a better fighter in any way. I just think Pereira is stronger, and I'm not sure. I think Izzy's got to bring it like he used to bring it when he was coming up the ranks, when he was an exciting fighter. Gotten comfortable.
Doesn't he lose that fight again?
If
he does that, smart. Doesn't he lose the fight again?
He's got to fight smart, and he's got to break this guy down. He's got to bring him to the ground. He's got to do a little bit of everything, because I don't think he's going to blast this guy out. Pereira's an animal. So
what? All right, 16-22. So we know when to cue it up next week, just in case. Bold prediction, but I'm going to say it like it's totally guaranteed so that we can cut it out of context.
Yeah.
Right? All right. For the first time in his 26th fight, Izzy wins by submission. And cut. Okay. And that's valid. That's valid. That seems to be, in the fights that we've had that I would compare to this one, that's your best bet. Well said. Second verse, same as the first.
Yeah, Riley Barrett Valdez says, I think the second fight goes the same as the first. Izzy controls the fight until the later rounds where Pereira catches him. I kind of see it like that. Although, again, listen, it's I don't know. I don't see him knocking Pereira out, and I don't see Pereira getting knocked out. And so I think
go my route. It doesn't happen like that. Israel Adesanya went back to the lab. He's changing the whole game up. He had a training camp like Ngannou had for Gane. And he's showing up looking to take the fight down and control from the top.
Here's the other element. Let's break this part of it down. Israel Adesanya has become kind of a heel, to bring the WWE term into it. He's become kind of a bad guy he's and I understand a little bit of it, but Israel Adesanya is an antagonizer. He can be disrespectful at times, and I think he sort of embraced that role. And I've heard him talk about how much he knows people want to watch him lose. And not going to lie to you, I felt the same way about Anderson Silva. I couldn't wait till somebody beat him. I was upset it had to be Chris Weidman twice, but still, I think this is, we talked about Wilder and Fury 2. And supposedly Wilder was going to go back to the lab. And how did that work out? About as well as Fury Wilder 3, when he went back to the lab another time and still came back with nothing. I think
this is different than that. This isn't
Jared, but
dominance with knockdowns and all of that stuff. It wasn't the back and forth. This is like, if you're Izzy, don't you believe you only have one way to lose this fight?
Well, now no, I don't. Again, now that Pereira's the champion, you got to take that belt from him. You got to dominate all of those rounds if you're going to go the distance with this guy, and hope that by round 4 or 5, he doesn't at some point just start landing and pound you out like he did in the last fight.
Teddy Atlas stuff. Yeah, at this point, he's got that 30%, like the old timers say. At this point, he's got the confidence of knowing he can do it.
At this point, it's got to be in his head a little bit. He's been a little more humble too, Anya, in talking about this. And so I don't think he's necessarily convinced unless he's just got this poker face on. But again, everyone's like, this guy's got your number. What are you supposed to say to that? Like, yeah, he does.
He beat me every time so far.
I think it's going to be hard for Adesanya to win this fight based on all of the, and I'll throw out the last fight. I'll throw out up until that moment.
The last 3.
That's the way he's been fighting. And so does he have the fire in his belly?
No, this guy beat him 3 times like that. Don't kickbox with this guy tonight, Izzy. Take him down. Take him down. First round submission. You heard it here first.
Listen, that is not an insane thing to say. Riley Barrett Valdez agrees, says calling for an Izzy submission. He said that about 10 minutes ago, which is fun. That's so bold it might actually happen. Yeah, there's no reason to think Adesanya. I'm not saying Izzy can't win this fight. It's going to be hard. And again, just based on what I've seen of him of late, I don't necessarily feel like this guy's not going to pound him out at some point before this fight ends. Adesanya, if he can't submit him or he can't catch him with something magical and put him out, this guy's a monster. And this guy's
take him down, make him do stuff you've never made him do before. I think Izzy can win this fight.
I agree with you. So,
and I think he's ultimately the better guy.
Keep that in the soundbite, by the way, in case Jared is right. I agree. I'm like, yeah, no, you're totally right about it. I'll put that part in. I'm not saying Izzy can't win this fight. And be honest with you, Pereira is such a sociopath looking monster. It's like I don't like him. I don't want him to be the champion. I really want Izzy back. I do. I would love Adesanya to win this fight. It's just going to be hard.
How many rounds has he won against him? I mean, Izzy's the better guy.
Izzy's definitely the better guy. That's what I started out by saying. Izzy's the more skilled guy, but Pereira's bigger naturally and stronger and appears to have this dude's number.
Well,
across two sports.
And every time we've had this scenario, the Pereira wins the fight. So I'm prepared to be wrong again, though, and go out on my shield.
Jared, let me ask you this. As a guy who has fought, was there ever anybody who you just stylistically didn't match up well with, that one guy that just seemed to always kind of have your number?
There were guys I struggled with. Little Chris, Billy DeCarli, Brett Sponzo, based on, their tacticians. Left-handed. All of them fought lefty. But I got to shout out Jason Nas because he wasn't as good as those other guys, and he has just a really awkward style that for some reason, the way he'd pressure and the distancing and where the punches came from was just, tough for me. There's a Jason Nas that I sparred with a few times. That's, just weird stylistically. Yeah, and when you do kickboxing and then you do kickboxing and then you do an MMA fight as if it's kickboxing so many years later that you think you're going to have a different result, and then you get woke up with blood on your face again and get another shot at it. You don't do it like a kickboxing match. That's the difference here. Is it's a mixed martial arts event where he's allowed to switch that narrative. If Pereira beats him on the ground, fine and dandy. But if I'm Izzy, I make him beat me on the ground. You're going to have to win this fight because I don't want to stand and bang with you anymore. I've proven that I'm better in the pocket and I'm better per exchange, but that you have the power to knock me out. So no, thank you. We're going to do something completely different this fight. I hope you have gas.
The longer this fight goes, to me, the higher the odds are Pereira wins it.
Really?
Yes. If this thing has to go full on out, I don't think Adesanya is going to win it.
By knockout, though, right? I think Pereira, all that strength and weight he's carrying around, tires him out later in the fight. And the longer it goes, especially to decision,
Pounded him
the
out.
more benefits
He pounded him out in the fourth.
He's losing rounds.
That's fine. But again, this is what I'm saying. If you're losing rounds, but you're not hurting this guy,
He's Tank Davising.
and he can pound you out in the fourth or the fifth. Again, dude, I think what stood out a couple years ago about Dustin Poirier, when I said, oh, dude, this kid's going places, it was knocking Justin Gaethje out at the end of the fourth round. Because, again, to me, it's like if you got knockout power in the fourth round, you could just turn it up and take somebody out. That's a dangerous individual.
Well, and Pereira is just that.
And that's exactly what Pereira is. So, to me, the more rounds this fight has, the more likely Pereira is to nail him and put him out.
Yes.
That's my thought. If Izzy
on the other hand, I like the gas tank on Izzy, and the further it goes, he could, the more opportunities he has to get clipped, but also
because sort of like Riley was saying, I think the more again, as the contender here, he's got to challenge the champion. So you got to bring the fight. It's going to be hard to win rounds if you're coasting, so he can't coast tonight. But again, the more pressure he applies, the more in it he gets, the more likely Pereira is to catch him. Or again, at some point to just, this guy's got great stamina. Again, he'd never been in a fourth round in his life. And there he was, pounding out one of the greats of all time. Yikes.
Yeah, take him to the ground.
I hope he's got the sense to do it. Adesanya, again, is one of the greatest to ever do this. No one's mistaken Alex Pereira for a GOAT. But we all felt the same way about Rocky Edwards. And he's still got a belt wrapped around his waist. All right.
Well, and great segue to Burns and Masvidal. Because same thing, Burns, do not get caught up in that trap of I'm the tougher guy and watch me trade punches. It's Masvidal's only chance at victory. Grind, grapple, wrestle, hold, and smother until you win the fight. It's the same blueprint I like for Izzy, except Burns is more versed at it. But same thing, could get caught in that kickboxing trap, and that's Masvidal's best path to victory.
Yeah, Masvidal's got a lot going on. They're in Miami. Things have not been going well for him. And the interesting thing here is if Pereira beats Adesanya, I got a lot going on here. I got a lot of motors going here. I mean, listen, this is a chance for Jorge Masvidal to get one more title run.
All right, pop quiz.
All he's got to do is beat Gilbert Burns.
Pop quiz. When's the last time Jorge Masvidal defeated a currently active UFC fighter?
It has been a rough go of late. Really, since the Ben Askren fight, the stoppage with Diaz. But otherwise, it's been a lot of L's.
Yeah, Michael Chiesa, July 27th, 2013. About a decade since he last beat an active UFC fighter. So I mean, and Conor McGregor's the best paid, and he's lost 3 of his last 4. These guys are proving, that your networking and social media ability is as important as your fighting skills. And Masvidal's ability to fool the general public into believing that he's still in the top 11 is, smart.
Yeah.
Well done. I respect your hustle, Jorge Masvidal. I always have.
You know, it's so funny, right? Gilbert Burns, to me is, and it's funny because his second to last victory was over Wonderboy Thompson, and his career is starting to mirror that of Wonderboy, where every time he gets a shot, he comes up short.
That upper echelon is just a touch out of his reach. Yeah.
It's a little out of his reach. And so, look, this is why I think Jorge Masvidal has a chance tonight. And again, a win here, and I think that puts him. I mean, I think he's next up for Chimaev. That's crazy. Again, Gilbert Burns had a shot with Chimaev. We know that. Yeah. Go back. He beats Tyrone Woodley. Gets a shot at Kamaru Usman. Gets pounded out. I think Gilbert Burns is like you said. I think he's that next shade down, and that's not a bad place to be.
He's also my candidate for number one all time with competitive class lists. And the Ben Askren plank, that's got to be number one. That's got to be number one.
Yeah, I'm pulling here big time for George Masvidal.
I'd love to see him win.
Who
I don't
right
think
again?
he will.
I think his career is on a similar trajectory to Jorge Masvidal's, where again, and I love George, but every shot George has had, every time George has had a big spot, he's lost the fight and not gotten to the promised land. Obviously, getting a title shot.
Garfunkels.
There you go. Gilbert Burns equals Robert Whittaker. I don't know if Burns is that good, but he's definitely living in that zone. He's at the bottom of that zone. I think Whittaker is more at the top of that zone. But again, it's that just under the elite, just under. You'll beat everybody but that guy, which is to me the worst. I don't know, Jared. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would I rather, you know what I mean? So always a thought. I'm going to say this fight goes the distance, and I say Georgie wins it on a 3-2 decision, and the place goes nuts.
Okay. No, Burns again smothers him. Doesn't fight the fan-friendly fight, but probably finishes him in the first 3 rounds.
Really? You think he finishes him? You think Georgie goes out? You think Georgie goes out like that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. No, that's not the controversial statement I might have made it sound like it was going to be.
Just like Izzy, though, Burns has to grind him. If you start trading with this guy, there is magic in his hands. You know, Pereira and Masvidal are 2 guys you wouldn't want to stand and trade punches with. And if they do that, they can lose. If they just refuse to do that, just grind it out, yeah, Burns might even stop this guy. Yep.
So I guess that said, if that be the case, is Georgie done? Is that the end of it? Does he get to hang him up officially, or does he continue to be the mouth of the South?
I don't know. Even if you win, you're going to get more than makes sense. Yeah, I don't know.
Prelims, by the way, early prelims start at 6 on ESPN Plus. Prelims at 8, and the main card begins tonight at 10 o'clock. It is a pay-per-view, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Georgie's going to do it in front of the home crowd. That's my feeling. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to parlay him and Pereira.
Okay.
I'm going to do that.
I've got
What else you
There
like on
is
that
one.
card? Who else?
Oh, Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, I promise you, this guy's hungry. He's local. He's been looking for a shot for a long time. He's got Calvin Gastelum on his way out playing gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Curtis
Oh,
continues his meteoric rise at plus 125. Get on it.
Bro.
Also, Santiago
Yes.
Ponzinibbio. Love this guy. Gangster fighting Kevin Holland. And same thing, grind him into the dust. Plus 200 on Pon. Yeah, let's go ahead parlay those two. And we would be remiss if we didn't at least mention the meteoric rise of Raul Rojas Jr., 18 years old, and nothing looked like it can stop this kid. Minus 227 I still like with Christian Rodriguez, who kind of feels like a fill-in fed to the young kid. Yeah, real fire. There is some real fire in there. Ponzinibbio, you pronounce it. You know who I'm talking about. Put your money on that guy.
Always love a Kevin Holland fight, but yeah, this guy's gonna murder him. But it'll be a fun fight. But yeah, dude, Kevin Gastelum.
Put that in your
boy,
parlay.
Gastelum, like you said, on his
And
way
this
out,
Curtis,
boy.
and this Curtis, these are totally different trajectories. Chris Curtis, yeah. Watch his last few fights. He's hungry as they come.
Pretty unbelievable. All right, well, that's going to do it for this part of the show. Make sure you follow us on Facebook or on Twitter at Throwing Jabs. You can visit clovercrestmedia.com/Throwing Jabs, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Throwing Jabs Podcast 683. That's going to do it for me. I'm Joe Aguirre. I'll turn things over now to Jared Jones. Give him that flurry.
I'm always talking about the people in your corner and having the right people in your corner, that the 3 minutes you spend in the fight, and then you get one to go talk to those people, and they have to be the right people. They just have to. I went to a grand opening for my cousin's Fox Hill Music School. You could throw up that pic. There's Ben and Casey, Ben Corbett, Casey Quaglia. They just opened Fox Hill School of Music in Vernon. If you're interested in learning how to play an instrument or any of the musical stuff, please check out Fox Hill School of Music. But here's the funny thing. I've been at my gym working with people, and magic just happens every day. People are crying, people are growing, people are laughing, people are interacting that never interact. There's all of this just beautiful things happening at the gym. And while I'd like to say it's this wonderful program that I personally built, and that I'm strong and compassionate and most of all humble, I've been noticing that the demographic that's coming in there, while some of them have trauma and some of them just want to see what they're capable of, and some of them want to stay in shape, and they've all kind of got their own reasons to be there, but they're going there with the intention of bettering themselves. I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And if the people inside the building all share that common value of wanting to be better, of willing to make steps and walk into a place that says, I can be better, and I'm willing to take direction, and I want to be better. So the funny thing is that I say, if you're interested in music, but the fact is, if you went down to Scrub Scraps Gym or Fox Hill Music School and just spent some time there, just go hang out with the people in that building. It isn't the building that makes it great. It isn't the building that makes the magic. It's the people inside of it. That's a quote from Casey Quaglia. And I genuinely believe that this is one of the ways you cultivate happiness and success in your life, is by working on common goals with people who care about other people. And that if you get around people like my cousin Casey and her husband Ben, the people you're going to find at Fox Hill Music School, your life will improve. It's happening to everybody who walks through the doors at Scrub Scraps, and for whatever an endorsement from me is worth. I'm certain it's happening over at Fox Hill Music School with those people. Go ahead, throw that card up for me, Joe. If you have any interest in boxing, come down to Scrub Scraps Gym. Any interest in music, go to Fox Hill School of Music. And if you have zero interest in music or boxing, but want to make your life happier and more successful, these are the types of places you want to frequent and the types of people you want to be around. Thank you.
Throwing jabs, always full send. Here we go again. Jared, Joe, and Jay's Clover Crest, top three corner man. Punching in with a puncher's chance, we find a way to win. The main event, lock it in every Saturday at 10. The overhand is out of hand when it comes to fisticuffs. Slide a hand on the undercard, you'll never see the punch. Uppercut got you missing weight, feet are stepping late. Keep your guard up, feeling faint from a feint. Take a stand and eight, then retaliate. Put up your duke, stick and move, bob and weave. Don't lose hope against the ropes, there's always an escape. Never stay down. One more round, bells ringing. Counter punch with your chin tucked and go down swinging. We bringing crosses with no worship, hooks with no verses, combinations with no locks. When you feel the flurry, it's curtains. From scrub scraps to fight stats, relax if you want the facts. Cause the best combat podcast is throwing jabs.